It's my nerd world. Welcome to it with open arms. A Star Wars show this week. First reviews of the Andor series have come out online. I will share with you what other people are saying. I will give you my thoughts on the trailer, which dropped earlier this week. Why I'm kind of over the partisan political chatter around Star Wars content. I'll explain. Plus, we have your listener feedback this week to get to as well. You emailed me at TalkShowNerd@gmail.com or wrote on Facebook, and we will discuss those. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Also, I hope you'll take a moment and head on over to mynerdworld.net, where you can find out not only more about the podcast that I produce, but, of course, my science fiction space opera series. 7 books available right now. Good for all ages, but written for adults, and I'll get into a little bit more details of that later on in the episode. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and get to it.
Nothing will stand in our way.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
I will finish what you started.
Who are you?
I'm no one. There are stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it.
The Force. It's calling to you.
My nerd world.
Just let it in.
And again, thank you so much for checking out another episode of A Star Wars Show here with My Nerd World. I am your host, Jon Justice, and this week I had been watching the final season of The Clone Wars, and I'm not sure exactly what brought me to it. I think it's because my 15-year-old and I had been rewatching The Bad Batch and looking for things to watch as I go to bed. I decided to give the that final 7th season of The Clone Wars a rewatch. Forgot just how fantastic it is. The music in those last 4 episodes has this air of foreboding that just underscores every single moment of that final series of The Clone Wars. Just an absolute fantastic watch, and has not gotten old at all. We do have a lot to get to on the show this week. Disney did go and drop the full trailer for Andor. It's funny, though, because they call these, the trailer as opposed to the teaser. Timing-wise, though, they're kind of similar in terms of neither the teaser nor the trailer really gave much more information, right, than the other. Speaking specifically to this most recent trailer, and lengthwise, they're about the same. Like I feel like it's kind of a cheat because the actual trailers are coming off kind of like the teaser trailers, or vice versa. Be that as it may, I was really excited with what I saw. I will talk about that in further detail as we move through the show this week. What I want to start off with, though, are the first reactions to the initial episodes of Andor. Some screeners have gone out, and one particular individual has gone online. I'm just going to share you one person's thoughts from this article from Bespin Bulletin, their first reaction over the first 4 episodes of Andor.
We are the spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the First Order down.
So from BespinBulletin.com, they write, "We've known for a handful of days that the press have seen 4 episodes of the Andor series, not due to be released until the back end of September, ended up pushing the release date, which bummed me out. It was supposed to come out on August 31st. Now it's not coming out till September 21st. There's a lot of chatter as it relates to other programming on the Disney Plus streaming service as to why it may have gotten moved. Also, some speculation from an individual who have seen the first 4 episodes as to also the reason why, not only that it got moved, but probably more specifically why we're getting 3 episodes to begin with. Reset Era user Ramallah took to a forum to give their brief thoughts on these first episodes of the Rogue One spinoff series. The user previously shared early reactions to TV series and films in the past, such as Ms. Marvel, the upcoming Sandman series for Netflix. So there is some credibility attached to this particular individual and their comments, which go as follows. I've seen the first 4, and it's the most serious, grounded thing Star Wars has ever done. It feels more like an English-made espionage thriller than Star Wars. It is totally unconcerned with giving you fan service moments, and instead wants to delve into what it's like for the bit players in this universe to wake up every morning and go about their day. This is not a space opera. It's more like a space drama. And I'll stop there really quick. This is irrelevant, right, in the grand scheme of things, but Star Wars will always be a space opera, even if it is a space drama. It just the very nature, the very description of what a space opera is, Star Wars will always be attached to it. Now, you can have, I believe, like a comedy space opera. You can have a drama space opera. But to say this is not a space opera is to not really understand, in my opinion, what the definition of a space opera is. In and of itself, Star Wars is a space opera. Okay, be that as it may. They go on to say it's slow, complex for Star Wars, and asks the viewer to do some work. This is all music to my ears, by the way. I'm loving what I'm hearing. It actually humanizes roles that are traditionally cartoon evil in the Star Wars universe. It's attempting to tell a grown-up story, and I think of it, and I think a lot of fans are going to hate it. Both Gilroy's presence is all over this thing. It's got that cinema verite vibe that the core Bourne movies, the Jason Bourne films, which Tony Gilroy was a huge part of, puts you in a world like never before. Whether the world can hold up to that level of scrutiny is up for debate, but it is fascinating. To this comment here, I think a lot of fans are going to hate it. Look, there's no avoiding this anymore. There is no avoiding controversy inside of Star Wars fandom. I think it's an impossibility. The way that we consume our information, the way that we share our information, the amount of monetary value that's attached to YouTube content, as we've discussed so many times on the show, especially things being negative, there's just no way to avoid this anymore. Getting back to more of this particular individual's thoughts on the first 4 episodes, the user also added in response to a comment that they believe the 3-episode premiere for the series was needed as the 3 episodes served as an entire story arc and compared it to a movie. Further on in the thread, the user praised the writing as the heroes can act like villains and vice versa. On the subject of characters, the user referred to the titular character as being Cassian Andor as the least interesting when compared to Mon Mothma and Stellan Skarsgård's Luthen Rael. Of the first 4, Luthen and Mon Mothma are definitely the rebel MVPs. Andor is probably the least interesting character, but then they've got a long way to go to get him to the man we meet in Rogue One. There is so much more interesting characterization going on the Imperial side of things, and let me tell you, it's fascinating to me. I kind of wish we got a whole show about that. Now, the Bespin Bulletin author goes on to say, I personally find the user's comments unsurprising given what we've already heard about the series over recent weeks, months, and even years. But it's still exciting to hear that the series is shaping up to be what I expected and hoped it would be. And I agree, and I agree wholeheartedly with the commentators' comments here. If you've been listening to their particular podcast for any amount of time, then you've heard these individuals praise what they've been hearing about the show for 2 years and what they were hoping for. Hearing that the series has a slow pace with complex characters and storytelling, and that it's not concerned with fan service moments and wants the viewer to think is exactly what I was hoping for, says the writer. The user mentions that some fans will hate it, but as I also mentioned as well, that's the nature of the way things are right now. I think division, the article writer says, is always a given, and I completely agree with their assessment as well. Tony Gilroy made an interesting comment. There's been a lot of, and I'll talk more about this in a moment, but there's been quite a bit of commentary coming from the creators of the show. Okay, comments. Diego Luna's been making the rounds on various talk shows. I believe that Tony Gilroy's been interviewed. Also, one of the actresses, which we'll talk a bit about here in falling into the what's annoying me in Star Wars this week category. But Tony Gilroy made a really interesting comment lately, which is what I'm trying to get to, in that they didn't use the volume, and if they did, it was very minimal for Andor. This is the production tool that's been utilized on The Mandalorian, The Book of Boba Fett, and most recently, in my opinion, to a fault, on the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Instead of a blue screen, they're on a large soundstage that uses LCD screens and the Real Engine video gaming platform that allows the parallax effect to take place as you're playing games. So if you're doing like a first-person shooter or even like playing Starfighter Assault, when you're flying around and the background changes as you fly around, that's what the camera does inside of the volume. You can have the LED screens showing the background of the stage, which you're actually going to see in camera. And as the camera moves, the background actually shifts so that it looks like it would in real life. Unfortunately, with the limitations of that, we're beginning to see where the stage ends and the volume begins. And it's my biggest complaint over Obi-Wan Kenobi. I watched the series again just recently, and it just didn't land for me on a number of different levels, but mostly coming down to the production value and the fact that so many of the shots and the scenes, the way that they're set up, look like they're on the volume. And it's the same type of production work that takes me out of early blue and green screen work. Or even probably a better example would be early CGI where it just didn't look right. Andor was shot on location for almost 90% of it. And Tony Gilroy made the comment that you have to decide which one you want to do when you're doing your production. Do you want to go the route of the volume, or do you want to go the route of traditional? And it seems like for Andor, as we mentioned, they announced this when they announced Disney Plus, shot as much practical and on location as they could. And the trailer absolutely shows it, because the trailer looks fantastic.
This is not going to go the way you think.
We've gotten very little in the trailer that dropped this week in terms of story. And that's just the nature of promotion these days, especially when it comes to Star Wars. They know that we're going to watch. They need to give us just enough visuals to entice us to lock in when the premiere takes place on Disney Plus. And I think it's unfortunate. I was listening to the Thank the Maker podcast, fantastic Star Wars podcast, by the way. I'm kind of a newer downloader of that show, but really, really enjoying the commentary from the guys on Thank the Maker. They got into a deep dive on trailers and how the studios used to go and produce the trailers, and now they farm them out to trailer production houses. And that's why typically we get the same type of vibe, especially for specific genres in our trailers. Very little in the way of going and laying out specific plots or story details. It was the host on Thank the Maker made a really good point in their decision on how they go and discuss trailers, because so infrequent do we ever get real big reveals in trailers anymore, especially for Star Wars. So to go and extrapolate, while it's fun, and I've done my fair share on this particular show, but to speculate and try to extrapolate off of trailers, it's really, an effort in futility, because very rarely are we ever correct in our extrapolation. I remember, apart from the leaks of The Rise of Skywalker, so much commentary, and again, myself included, on particular visuals from the trailer that we thought were leading to certain things, and 90% of the time, the speculation is completely off. This trailer, though, is delivering. Is delivering for me visually. The way that the two seasons have been described, it is akin to what I've kind of been hoping for, and that is a Game of Thrones-style storytelling. Multifaceted, multiple storylines, deliberate in its expansion of world building. It's what I'm really hoping for in the future of the cinematic experience when we return to the saga themes and hopefully stories post The Rise of Skywalker, even in episodes 10, 11, and 12. What we're getting in the way that Andor is laying out, taking place over, again, 2 seasons, 12 episodes, I believe, per season. It's going to span multiple years, starting when Andor was really young. And these characters, as the reviewer had mentioned, where Andor in the first 4 episodes is almost a secondary character, and we got that vibe from the trailer. Looking at Mon Mothma, looking at this Stellan Skarsgård character, who is certainly, at least according to the trailer, is playing a dual role, much like Mon Mothma is, of serving in the Galactic Senate while also being the impetus of the rebellion. I hope that we get that type of same storytelling when we return to those themes of the prequels, the original, and the sequel trilogy. And we get back into the Force aspect of this and the mythology aspect of it, which I don't think we're going to be getting a ton of in the Andor series, and that's to be expected because the Andor series is, leading into Rogue One, and that's not what these stories are about. This is our larger tale of the rebellion being built. And I hope it doesn't step on Rebels. Because Rebels did a really, really fantastic job of at least telling one particular story of a group of rebels and how it ended up sort of evolving. The rebellion, ended up evolving, and they ended up getting rolled into it. I don't think it's going to, but I am a little bit fearful because it seems as if the story group for Lucasfilm has been getting a little bit looser in terms of what is canon and what isn't canon. And with as much content as they're pumping out, I suppose that's unavoidable. But boy, I mean, they did really step in it in a number of different ways, in my opinion, when it came to Obi-Wan Kenobi and the original trilogy. And some of the storytelling that we're seeing push back on story beats from Rebels. It has me concerned that Disney is going to, and Lucasfilm specifically, are going to end up going more the route of Marvel, where they're kind of really playing hard. They're playing loose with the canon aspect of it. At the end of the day, we're smart enough as an audience and viewers and readers to differentiate between, which stories we want to follow and which ones are canon and which aren't. But again, as the storytelling grows, I really do think that the idea of the publications and the cartoons aligning with the live-action television and the thematic experience, that distance is going to begin to grow larger and larger, and we're just going to have to go and accept that fact. All right, let's go ahead and dive into something, a little bit more controversial this week.
When I found you, I saw raw, untamed power. And beyond that, something truly special.
Now, I hesitated bringing this up on the show. I'm not going to lie. Because I don't particularly like to go there or go here when it comes to the content on the podcast. That being said, this has been bugging me all week, so I just want to get it off my chest. So, my apologies up front for going a little bit negative and talking a little bit of politics on the show this week. So we'll lump this into the category of what's annoying me in Star Wars. So I'm going to... Goodness gracious. Sorry about that. I'm going to use this article from... I'm sorry about that. I had to clear my throat. I'm going to use this article from Giant Freaking Robot as my reference point. The headline of this article is, New Star Wars Series Inspired by Donald Trump. And it goes as follows. I'm just going to read you a portion of this and then make my point. It's not often that you hear Star Wars and the orange-tinted former president in the same conversation, but apparently Andor is about to change all of that. Look, and that's a bit of a stretch. And this is why I get annoyed when comments like this are made before a piece of content is released. And I'll explain myself and add the proper context here, because that's a bit of a stretch to say Andor's about to change all that. Okay, there was one comment made by an actress on the show. Creator Tony Gilroy is leading the charge on the new Star Wars series. It's no surprise he's bringing a political edge to the galaxy far, far away. Now, before you say anything, I know that George Lucas always had politics in mind with Star Wars, and I will clarify my comments and try to be as specific as I possibly can. So, I hope that you will listen to what it is that I'm saying and why I'm annoyed. So, the writer behind political thrillers like Michael Clayton and the Bourne trilogy has written, doing that thing with my fingers, has written a great, scurrilous take on the Trumpian world, according to Fiona Shaw, who is playing Marva in the series. She adds, "Our world is exploding in different places right now. People's rights are disappearing, and Andor reflects that in the show. The Empire is taking over, and it feels like the same thing is happening in reality, too." I'm getting real tired of comments like this, especially the Trumpian world aspect of it. Look, again, I know, that George Lucas has always had politics in mind when he created his series. He named certain characters after controversial political figures in the prequel trilogies. He equated the Return of the Jedi, Andor, and battle to Vietnam. George has always been very open about things of the political inspirations when it comes to Star Wars. I'm personally over the fact that this type of commentary is being used to promote content. Look, it leads to mantras in the social sphere of, as I mentioned, Star Wars was always political, if you dare go and push back on it. I've seen asinine commentary that you can't be conservative and still love Star Wars. These content creators and performers are, of course, entitled to their opinion. Right? I am a huge proponent and fan and will always fight for free speech. Okay? I'm just personally over the assumption that it's okay to comment on one side of the political spectrum at the behest of the opposing side. Now, they also know that those who get annoyed like myself are probably still going to end up watching. I will still end up watching, regardless of Fiona Shaw's comment of, it's written as a take on the Trumpian world, okay? But it doesn't mean I have to sit back and be silent when we see this type of annoying partisan commentary. Stepping back even further, I wish that we had more ambiguity in our Star Wars promotion. I don't mind the mentioning of political intrigue and inspiration of geopolitical current events, but why not high road it just a little tiny bit and leave it up to the viewer to draw their own conclusions? And typically, when you go and push back on comments like that, right? Because the reality is, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you fall on, and I don't care. I'm a conservative. If that's a shock to you all of a sudden, welcome to my Nerd World, a Star Wars show. I host a weekly conservative news talk show here in Minneapolis. At the same time, I don't care what your political views are. It's cool. If you like listening to my show, I hope that you don't care what my political views are. Right? We're all entitled to our opinion. But unfortunately, with commentary like this, when you go online and if you were to go to push back and say, like as I'm saying right now, that I'm tired of sort of the partisan one side being able to, or feeling like it's okay to go and comment that way, again, like I said, at the behest of the other side of the political spectrum. If you go and push back on that, suddenly you will get the commentary and reply of, well, Star Wars has always been political, as I mentioned. And that's really easy to say and not have it bother you when the commentary is in lining with your side of the political spectrum. And I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. Good art leaves it open to interpretation. And you can take the themes of Star Wars, regardless of what George Lucas had intended, and apply them to your political viewpoint, depending on the current events of the day. And I hope this is making sense, because I wish that we would perhaps find out about this later on. And I wish it wasn't used in so much of the pre-promotion of content like this. Because I really feel like it's much better to leave the viewer to draw their own conclusions and their own comparisons, rather than trying to make some political statement over a series that takes place a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And I'll be completely open and honest. It annoys me coming from the right side, where it seems as if it's the left side that feels so emboldened to go and be brazen in their commentary, to where it just doesn't matter what the other side thinks with this. Star Wars is for everybody, and I've always agreed with that. And I agree with those individuals that go and, tout that often when looking at the controversies surrounding new content that's being created by Star Wars. Unfortunately, there also seems to be a blanket acceptance that one side of the political argument can be labeled as bad and be disenfranchised a bit, or potentially offended. Being offended is a choice. I'm not offended by this. I just think it's stupid. It just gets old to me. And that's all I wanted to say with regard to this. I'm really, really getting tired of that, and I hope that it changes sometime in the near future. I feel as if, the market will help to course correct any injection of, forced injection of politics or current wedge issues into the content that we see on so many different levels, not just Star Wars. We'll find out whether or not the public wants that type of injection of current wedge issues or not, based off of, how these stories end up being received. My guess is when it comes to Andor, you're probably going to be able to apply whatever sort of real-world geopolitical politics you want to apply to it, which is what I wish Fiona Shaw had just said. It's written a great scurrilous take on geopolitics that we're dealing with right now. But of course, no, it's way more fun for individuals to go and try to poke fun at people that support past presidents. All right, let's go. I said my piece. I've vented. I hope you don't mind. And if you did mind, well, you also have the power to turn the podcast off and not listen again. So, be that as it may, let's go ahead and get to some listener feedback this week.
I need someone to show me my place in all this.
Friend of the show, Miranda, writes, I hope it's not too late. No, it's not, to drop a comment, but how absolutely stellar was that Andor trailer? I think we are in for an unexpected gem on our hands. I totally agree. JC Val 93 writes, in reference to the series Light and Magic on Disney+, the Industrial Light and Magic docuseries is perhaps the best of the behind-the-scenes documentaries. I've watched it twice now. Interesting story. I once read about, apparently, right before forming ILM's facility in Van Nuys, George Lucas and Gary Kurtz have been approached by a stop-motion animator, Jim Danforth, and Bill Taylor, a cinematographer, who was also an instructor with the USC Film School, and had proposed doing most of the visual effects using stop-motion animation. Thankfully, the request was turned down by Lucas and Kurtz. Just imagine Darth Vader, Chewbacca, and the droids as stop-motion puppets, not to mention the ships. It would have been laughable. Certainly we would not be talking about it 45 years later. I also recently saw that Lawrence Kasdan, who was behind the new ILM series, said in a recent interview that he was open to a new Solo, either a series or a new film, which is what he preferred. I like Solo. It was refreshing to have a Star Wars movie where the whole Jedi Force thing was not part of the storyline. Look, I agree with you, even though my desire for new content is really focused around getting back to the Force and the saga themes. But I, too, really, really enjoy Solo. My question is, if they did go and make another Solo, would they go and try to use Alden Ehrenreich, or would they go a different route? That's what I would like to see. I think that Solo was a great film, but I also could have seen that same type of level of production. Because there was some interesting production quality. The production quality on Solo was interesting as well. I think it largely had to do with the reshoots. But Solo looks a lot like the really good production quality that we got in both Mandalorian seasons, especially season 2. I could definitely see Solo working out as a series much like Andor leading up to the events of A New Hope, even including Alden Ehrenreich, who I think did a fantastic job playing Solo. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm not expecting anything Solo for anytime soon. We were supposed to be getting a Lando show, and I don't know what happened to that either. And I would have imagined that the Lando show, assuming that it would have taken place in a similar timeline, would have featured Donald Glover, which potentially could have led to more Kira or more Solo, depending on the time frame. But based off of the productions that are now, the productions that are currently being produced, for lack of a better word and sounding completely and totally redundant, I don't see that happening anytime soon. Thank you so much for the listener feedback this week. TalkShowNerd@gmail.com, or leave a comment up on YouTube as well. Before I let you go, I hope that you will take the time to check out my science fiction space opera series, EMBARK. Treat yourself, a family member, or a friend with science fiction. Again, written for adults, but great for ages 11 plus. EMBARK Book 1 available today at a discounted price, and the entire series is available in ebook, hardcover, paperback, and audiobook on Amazon or mynerdworld.net. The Book 1 storyline goes as follows. Superpowers will go to war because of it. Humanity won't survive without it. And they've just found it. Time is running out on Earth when an industrial accident inside a civilian and military spacecraft factory ignites a catastrophic chain of events. While officials work furiously to shield the public from the truth, Keitha Morrow suddenly receives a cryptic message from her father, an aerospace engineer who died 1 year earlier. When fellow pilot Taft Guardia eagerly agrees to help investigate, they uncover a shocking secret. Excitement quickly turns to fear as calamity envelops the planet, and Keitha realizes the significance of what they found. Meanwhile, when a corporate madman with a armada at his disposal hears of the discovery, he will stop at nothing to obtain it, desperate to exploit the global evacuation and gain control. On the run, Taft, Keitha, and a ragtag squadron of pilots must now unlock the mysteries of what her father left behind, fight off the enemy, and survive long enough to stop the threat to humanity's future among the stars. If you like your science fiction space opera to be epic, filled with romance and action, then EMBARK is perfect for you. Again, go to Amazon.com, look for Jon Justice, and EMBARK, or head on over to mynerdworld.net. Thank you so much for checking out the show again this week. Again, if you have any comments you want to add, email me, talkshownerd@gmail.com, or leave a comment up on YouTube. Like and subscribe on YouTube, and subscribe wherever you are, whatever platform you're using to listen to this podcast. We'll be back again next week with more Star Wars commentary. Until that time, I hope wherever you are happy, you are healthy, and most importantly, you're safe. Thank you so much for checking the show out. Bye.
The Force will be with you, always.
My Nerd World.